Hello, everyone. So, we are in Black History Month, and I hope everybody that can is taking the opportunity to read a book about the civil rights movement here in the United States, or to try to read something biographical by an actual prominent African American leader of that time. So, the book I'm going to be talking about today is The End of White World Supremacy, and it was actually edited by a guy named Benjamin Karim, who was a sort of convert to the Nation of Islam and knew Malcolm X. Now, for those of you who don't know, Malcolm X was a prominent member of a religion called the Nation of Islam that formed here in the United States, and it took parts of various religions and various scriptures from the Bible and, of course, the Quran, and it borrowed very heavily on, Islam, hence the name Nation of Islam. I do not know if you could actually consider it from a theological perspective to be truly part of Islam, but that's for theologians and religious scribes to really debate over. We're not going to get too much into it here. But either way, so Malcolm X was the leader of People's Temple number 7, and he became, of course, prominent during the Civil Rights Movement. And I'm going to get into some really interesting things about him here. But first, I do want to mention very quickly a biopic. I seldom recommend movies, but I'm just going to discuss one very briefly here. The 1992 biopic, Malcolm X, starring Denzel Washington. It was a very, very good movie. Denzel Washington's performance was great, but honestly, he usually always delivers on a very good product. So if you don't have time this Black History Month to read a book about any of the aforementioned topics, hey, you can at least watch this for an educational experience, or for that matter, if you just want an entertaining experience. It's a very good movie. So I want to discuss 3 qualities that stood out to me when it came to Malcolm X, and then I want to get into some personality dimensions. The 3 things that really stood out to me here is, number 1, when we talk about especially African American leaders in the civil rights movement, most were Christian, yet Malcolm X was actually not. He was, as I said before, a Nation of Islam. This is very, very interesting for that time. He really is the only prominent African American leader I can think of, and he paved the way for much of the Islam that exists in America today, even if the Nation of Islam has nothing to do with, say, Sunni or the Shiite traditions. He did not believe in integration or compromise. He sort of seemed to have it in his head and in his heart that to hate is human, and that as long as there are groups with a lot of differences between them, some of them highly visible, it's always going to be a battle for resources. The other thing is unlike other people within the civil rights movement, say like Stokely Carmichael, who's one of the founding fathers of the Black Panthers, or say Martin Luther King, who was actually president of a couple organizations, most significantly the Southern Christians Leadership Conference. Malcolm X was a prominent personality within the Nation of Islam, but he was never actually the leader of it. His mentor was the person who founded the religion, and that was Elijah Muhammad. Now, again, People's Temple number 7 was in New York, which is at the heart of a lot of American industries, one of the most populous cities in the world, or certainly in the United States. So it's an important position, but People's Temple number 7 was never even the largest church or mosque or whatever the Nation of Islam refers to it as. So that's something to really take into consideration here. Now I want to move on to analyzing some personality dimensions. I call this Up Against the Ocean because of the acronyms that these 5 personality dimensions make. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Openness, I think we have to rate Malcolm X as being pretty low. After all, he was a diehard separatist versus everybody else who believed that you could just get along. His attitude was finance the return of African Americans to Africa or carve out a place in America that was proximate in land area to the population. Conscientiousness, it was pretty high. You read these speeches, this man is a scholar. Actually looked up his official education. He never graduated high school. This was a different time, and there was probably a lot of reasons. I'm just saying that we see here a man who is very, very educated. He's an autodidact. Extroversion, pretty high. When he has his public appearances, despite the seriousness of the content he talks about, when you look at pictures of him, he is often smiling. Agreeableness, I gotta say, he was pretty low on. He looked right at people he had amicable relationships with and would say, you're the devil, or you're a race of devils. He didn't compromise at all. Now, I do understand that he converted over to a different tradition of Islam later, and so he lost some of that edge. But certainly in his heyday, you have to rate him as low on agreeableness. Now, neuroticism, of course, basically a trait of how weird you were or personality quirks you have. He doesn't seem to have any of those that have made it into fame, unlike, say, Che Guevara was known to have some eccentricities and things like that. He didn't have any of that. Now, what's interesting is when you have somebody who's high in conscientiousness, extroversion, and agreeableness, and low in agreeableness, that's kind of a charismatic trifecta. There's something about people who are uncompromising but highly motivated and extrovert that, makes them desirable socially. So I hope you've actually enjoyed this, and I hope this inspires you to at least watch a movie about the civil rights movement, or as I said, pick up a book that's a biopic of a prominent African American leader from this time period, which was pretty much, you can make the late 50s to the mid 70s. Thank you.